This is big. I don't just mean in a kind of huge news kind of way. It is also big in a huge news kind of way because it boasts 1200 millimeters per second in speed and 110 millimeters cubed per second in flow rate, which, well, at more than twice the speed of a Bamboo X1 carbon. With those stats, it cannot be described as anything short of insane. But it's also big. This is the new S1 by FLSUN. Let's go. This video is sponsored by Sunlu. So this will be an interesting video review of the S1 with less views of the various angles and size of the machine than I might normally do on a machine because, well, it's not entirely my choice on this occasion. There's a few reasons I'll get into as to why, but the first one is that this printer weighs 46 kilograms. Yes, the same as a small human. I don't know about you, but I can't deadlift 46 kilograms. The S1 has been released alongside the T1, which is the smaller and arguably more sensible Delta printer that FLSUN are making at the same time. The specs are on screen. The T1 is a bit slower, but only, you know, a mere double the speed of a Bamboo X1 carbon and almost double the speed of a Creality K1 on paper. So you're not really missing out on the fun if you do go for the T1. But back to the S1. In case you haven't noticed, it's a Delta printer. It's called a Delta printer because it has 3 arms, and Delta is the 4th letter of the Greek alphabet. Deltas have a tool head on the bit where these arms meet, and those of us who are pretending we know things, we call that an effector. If you know why that's the case, feel free to not write it in the comments. Deltas also look really cool when they print. This is just an undeniable fact. The S1, unlike the T1, has a built-in filament dryer, which is actually active, as in it's a heated filament dryer, and it can run independently of the printer itself, so it can carry on running after the print's finished and the printer has turned itself off, kind of. It also has up there behind the filament dryer a very noisy thing. A very, very noisy thing. This is a centrifugal turbo fan, which people call CPAP, but I can't imagine you'd sleep through that. It spins at 40,000 RPM. Now, oddly, the T1 is spec'd at spinning slower at 30,000 RPM. I'm not sure why. This turbo fan at full speed is loud, I'll put it bluntly. If you think you're going to be in the same room as it while it's printing, you're going to want to look at running it about half speed, where the noise is much more like a normal printer. I've been kind of working on a profile for that. I'll share it to Patreon, I think. The thing is, with this machine, cooling is the main bottleneck, so the fan is needed. At half speed, you have to throttle back a fair bit, especially on overhangs or layers with a small time, as they could tend to end up staying squishy, and that's kind of the case with the printer generally at 500 millimeters per second, which is, I think that's the default speed, or it's the default speed of some parts of the print, and that's absolutely insane, frankly, as a print speed. That would normally be a travel speed, so that's why you need the fan to be on 100%, and if you're not running the fan on 100%, you need to turn the print speed down a lot, if that makes sense. Of course, moving the cooling off the toolhead has one advantage: it makes the toolhead lighter. With Deltas, especially, every bit of weight on the toolhead counts. The S1, like its predecessor the V400, is also a direct drive extruder, which is, to be honest, it's unusual in Deltas as they tend to try to avoid having that weight on the effector. But obviously there are benefits to having extruder on the effector. For example, it makes flexibles possible, and it reduces retraction, so your print is generally going to come out neater and reducing the pressure that you have sticking around in the Bowden tube. Deltas also have really long Bowden tubes if they aren't direct drive. Let's look at the claimed 110 millimeters cubed per second and see what happens there. This also seems like an appropriate time to mention that the hot end is quoted as being good up to 350C, which is very high, and it's also got an 80 watt heating element in it. So again, this is really high spec. The most interesting thing about the hot end though is this. If you think that this looks like a familiar size nozzle, then you would be right. This appears to be a V6 nozzle, and a V6 nozzle fits, I've checked. Which does raise the question, how on earth do you get 110 millimeters cubed per second out of a V6 nozzle? Bearing in mind the average V6 nozzle is capable of about 15 on a good day, a very good day. The answer seems to be a combination of this, and perhaps you don't. In my tests, I managed to achieve a pretty impressive 400 millimeters per second print speed, which equated to about 35 cubic millimeters per second as a flow rate, and beyond that it started breaking down. This is sustained volume. It can clearly do way more in the real world where the flow rates are changing, so you would be looking at maybe 45 or more instantaneous that I would probably say it can do. Above that, I'm skeptical. It might be able to do it for a second or so. So I don't know where they've got 110, but that being said, this is a really high flow rate for a V6 nozzle. But yeah, it's all very interesting, and I'm definitely going to do more experimentation with this to see what kind of limits it has and what happens when you put a Diamondback nozzle in, for example, because I do have a 1mm Diamondback V6. The printer has 2 heating zones on the bed, but at the moment this is a bit mysterious. I can replicate here, turning each zone on individually, so we can see that on the infrared camera. So it does work in terms of the hardware, but the software feels a bit immature there. I think the slicer probably can do it, but if you're using another slicer, then good luck with that. I can sort of see what the G-code is doing, but hopefully a bit more info will come out and we'll be able to maybe use that on things like Orca Slicer in the future. This isn't the first time I've seen this kind of dual bed heating thing. The BQ Hurricane had it, and the Neptune 4 Pro, I think, which I didn't have. So during this video, I've been using, not exclusively, but I think every time you've seen red or blue filament, this has been from today's sponsor, Sunlu. When you have an extremely demanding printer like this one that has on-paper specs of something ridiculous like 110 cubic millimeters a second, this is what 110 looks like, by the way, but yeah. But anyway, most fast printers these days are looking at really high flow rates compared to the kind of thing you could achieve a couple of years ago, because what's happened is the kinematics and things like input shaping have meant that printers can print a lot faster. The kinematics are not the bottleneck anymore, basically, so you start to see more bottlenecks on maximum flow rate on more normal models, and this will manifest as a variety of cosmetic and structural issues. And that is why we're starting to see more high-flow filaments on the market. Now, FLSUN specifically told me to use a high-flow filament on this printer to achieve the best results, so this is a really good sponsor tie-in. This high-flow filament from Sunlu, I think it speaks for itself. I've been demonstrating how well it works. Do bear in mind that the speeds we're printing at here are far higher than you're used to seeing. So go check it out, and go check out the other stuff that Sunlu do too. I've previously covered the S4 filament dryer, which is really good. And of course, they make an enormous range of filaments and also resins. I will include a link in the description to these things, so please use it to visit them. Thank you, Sunlu, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. I'll show you some random models next that I've made with the S1 at this point. It is definitely fast. The print speeds are just completely out there. This pot, in fact, ran out of filament, so I can confirm that the filament sensor and filament changing, it all works fine. I'll also put the specs of the T1 and the S1 on screen for you to compare. I don't know if FLSUN are sending out T1s for review at this point. In terms of hardware, I did some digging, and in the top of the machine, I was really hoping I wouldn't have to flip the machine over, and luckily I don't. In the top of the machine, the panel comes off, and I found a board inside that drives the machine, so this is one of those 2-part clipper installs. The other part is behind the screen, as you'd expect. It seems to be very much bespoke, or at least it's not a solution I've seen before, like the MKS skipper-based systems that are quite common. Also note the backs of the stepper motors. These have the control boards on them for the closed loop control that I didn't mention. That's really cool to see, although I'm not sure what closed loop adds to this. I mean, in theory, it would check when it skips a step, but I think you wouldn't want to skip a step, and I certainly haven't seen that happen, so who knows. So let's move on to what I think about the FLSUN S1. I think it's quite an insane machine. I think we knew it would be when it was announced. It was the first commercial machine to exceed 1000 mm per second. It was the first commercial machine with turbofan cooling, the first machine with its own filament dryer in the top, I think. It will theoretically tick a lot of boxes for some of you with really high performance requirements. But on the other side, there's a list of things I would like to see on this machine. The main one being SSH access, and I have asked about that, and I have been told it's coming soon, but at the time of review, I do not have SSH access, and this stops me from really probing the hardware and seeing what's actually behind there and how they've got the screen configured and stuff. Being able to use another slicer is another thing I'd quite like. I think it should be possible, it's just someone's going to have to sit down and look at what all the start code is doing and transfer it over to Orca Slicer. Probably will be the best one to use. There's a few random quirks here and there, and these are firmware and software. Like I couldn't figure out how to start a time lapse. You have to tick it on the machine, and then at the end you can play it on the screen, which is really weird, but then you have to upload it to the USB stick or it will be deleted next time you generate one. But yeah, at the moment that's how it is. And there's also these lights on the left of the screen. I don't know what they do. I can see that they're RGB LEDs and you could change them in the dashboard, but I don't know what they're for. I'm also entirely unsure as to how all the LiDAR stuff works and the first layer detection works. It does seem to, but I just don't know what it's doing, if that makes sense. I'd like a bit more documentation on that side. Maybe that will be forthcoming as well. As to whether you should buy this S1 or the T1, or either of them at all, I think it's going to depend on how strong your back is and how deep your wallet is. They're both potentially amazing, capable machines. I think for most people, the T1 is probably going to be the sensible one, but then maybe you don't want sensible. Maybe you want the S1 with all its craziness. If you do want to know more about either of these models, the T1 or the S1, I would appreciate if you would use the links in the description, because I do actually get a commission if you then go on to buy one of these machines, or indeed anything from the FLSUN site. And with that, I think I'm done. Any comments or questions below as usual. I will see you next time, and I'm thinking it might be with a Diamondback episode. I'm quite looking forward to doing that. Thank you for watching.